He walked out like a man who had been born for exactly this. The lights, the applause, the particular electricity of a room that was already his before he'd said a word. Jamie Foxx has a quality that is almost impossible to describe accurately and completely impossible to manufacture. It's not charm, though charm is certainly part of it. It's not talent, though the talent is extraordinary and visible in everything he does. It's something more fundamental than either of those things, a kind of aliveness, a total presence in every moment he inhabits that makes you feel when you're in the same room with him that something important is happening and you are lucky to be there for it. He came through the late show curtain with that enormous, infectious energy, pointed at people in the front row, did something with his voice that made the front 3 rows dissolve into laughter before he'd reached the desk, and settled into the guest chair like a man taking possession of territory that was rightfully his. Stephen greeted him warmly. The band played, and for the first several minutes everything was exactly what anyone watching expected: big, warm, funny, effortlessly dazzling. Jamie at full capacity, which was a thing that could fill a stadium and still have something left over. They talked about the new project, about what it meant to still be finding work that challenged him at this stage of a career that had already contained more peaks than most people's entire lives. They talked about the music, about the acting, about the particular gift of a man who could move between disciplines without losing anything in translation. He was generous and magnetic and entirely in control. And then Stephen set down his note cards. "Jamie," he said, "I want to ask you about your grandmother." Something happened in Jamie's face, not a collapse, something more subtle than that. A softening, a slight shift in the quality of his presence, the way light changes when a cloud moves across it. "Okay," he said quietly. "She raised you," Stephen said. "She raised me," Jamie confirmed. "Tell me about her," Stephen said, simply, like it was the most natural request in the world. Jamie looked at him for a moment, then looked out at the audience, then back at Stephen. And when he spoke, his voice was different, stripped of performance, carrying something private and unguarded that the studio audience leaned forward to receive. "Her name was Estelle," he said. "Estelle Marie Tolley, and she was everything. She was the center of everything. I was adopted by my grandparents when I was very young, and my grandfather passed when I was a boy, and after that it was just me and Estelle, in Terrell, Texas, just the two of us against whatever the world was going to bring." Stephen was very still. "She was a woman who had no business having the amount of faith she had," Jamie continued, his voice carrying a warmth that wasn't performance, it was memory. "She had seen hard things, she had lived through things that would have broken most people, and she never broke, she kept going. She kept the house, she kept me in school, she kept insisting that I was special when I had absolutely no evidence to offer her that she was right." He paused. "She put me at the piano when I was 5 years old," Jamie said. "She didn't ask me if I wanted to play, she just sat me down and said, 'This is what you're going to do.' And I hated it the way kids hate everything that requires discipline when they'd rather be outside. But she didn't give me a choice. And at some point the hatting stopped and the thing she had seen in me that I couldn't see in myself started to become visible, started to become real." "When did you know," Stephen asked, "that she had been right all along?" Jamie smiled, but it was a complicated smile, the kind that carries something painful alongside the warmth. "Every day," he said. "Every single day I know that. Every time I walk onto a set or a stage and do the thing that she made me start doing at 5 years old, I know that she was right and I was wrong, and she never once said 'I told you so.'" He paused. "She never needed to, she watched, she was always watching." "Until she wasn't," Stephen said gently. The smile stayed, but something shifted behind it. "Until she wasn't," Jamie said. Stephen waited. "She passed before the Oscar," Jamie said. "People don't always know that. They hear the speech, they know I thanked her, they know how much she meant to me, but they don't always know the timing. She was gone by the time that night happened, she didn't get to see it." The studio was quiet in the particular way it gets quiet when 300 people simultaneously understand that they are in the presence of something real. "How long before?" Stephen asked. "A few months," Jamie said. "Not long, long enough that I had started to find a way to breathe again, but not long enough that it didn't feel like there was a hole in everything, like every good thing that happened was happening in a world that had this absence in it, this specific, irreplaceable absence." His jaw was tight, his hands were very still in his lap. "The night of the Oscars," he said, "I was getting ready backstage and the whole thing felt unreal, the way big moments sometimes do. Like you've been working towards something for so long that when it finally arrives, some part of you doesn't quite believe it's happening. And I kept thinking about her. about what she would have been doing at that exact moment, wherever she was in the world if she had still been in it. He stopped. She would have been on the phone, Jamie said. That's what I kept thinking. She would have been calling everyone she knew. She would have been up since 4 in the morning telling people to make sure their televisions were on. She would have been so loud about it, in the best possible way. She would have made sure that every single person in Terrell, Texas knew that her boy was at the Oscars. The first tear came then, quiet and sudden, the way things come when they've been held back long enough and a specific memory finally breaks through the wall. And instead, Jamie said, it was just me backstage in a tuxedo holding this insane reality together with both hands, and I kept thinking she should be here. She built this. Every single thing I can do, every note I can play, every character I've ever inhabited, that all started with her sitting me at a piano in Terrell, Texas and refusing to let me quit. She built this, I just showed up for it. Subscribe and leave a comment because the most powerful part of this story is still ahead. Stephen stood up from behind his desk without announcement and walked around to sit on the edge of it, facing Jamie directly. He said nothing for a moment, he just moved closer. The way you move closer to someone when the distance between you has become inappropriate for what's being said. Jamie, he said finally, when you won, when they called your name, what was the first thing you thought? Jamie looked at him, both eyes were wet now, he didn't reach for the tears. I thought, I have to remember this perfectly, he said. I have to remember every detail so I can tell her. The weight of the statue, what the lights looked like, what it smelled like up there, what the moment felt like when they said my name. I have to remember it all so I can tell her. He stopped. And then I remembered, and the remembering was, it was like losing her again, right there on that stage in front of everyone. Stephen looked at him steadily. And yet you went out there, Stephen said, and you gave a speech, and you thanked her, and you held it together. I had to, Jamie said. She would have been furious if I hadn't. She raised me to show up. That was the whole lesson, show up, do the thing, be the person she knew you could be. So I went out there and I showed up. For her, even though she wasn't there, maybe especially because she wasn't there. He pressed one hand briefly over his eyes, then lowered it. I talked to her that night, Jamie said. After, when it was over and everyone had gone and I was alone with it, I talked to her, the way I've been talking to her since she's been gone. Not because I think she can necessarily hear me, but because I'm not done talking to her. I don't think I'll ever be done talking to her. She's too much a part of everything I am for the conversation to just stop. Stephen looked at him for a long moment. You know what I think, Stephen said. I think she was there. I think that when they called your name and you walked out onto that stage and you played the piano at 5 years old because she sat you down and refused to take no for an answer, I think she was in every single one of those moments. I think she is in everything you do, not as a memory, as a presence, as the thing that made the thing possible. Jamie looked at him. Something moved across his face, complicated and slow, the way large things move. She would have hated how I'm crying right now, he said. His voice was rough, but the faintest smile was there underneath it. She would have said, boy, pull yourself together, you're on television. Stephen laughed, a real one. She sounds like she was magnificent, Stephen said. She was the most magnificent person I ever knew, Jamie said, and I spend every day trying to be worth what she invested in me, and some days I think I get close, and some days I fall way short, but I never stop trying because she didn't raise me to stop. The applause that followed was not the explosive response of the opening, that had been the crowd responding to Jamie Foxx, the entertainer, the star, the phenomenon. This was something different. This was 300 people responding to the son of Estelle Marie Tolley, to a man who had won every prize his industry had to offer and would have traded all of them for one more phone call from a woman in Terrell, Texas. Jamie Foxx had walked onto the Late Show as a force of nature. He walked out carrying something more important, the evidence of a woman's faith. The proof that when someone believes in you completely and unconditionally and refuses to let you quit, something gets built that outlasts everything, even absence, even grief, even the specific, irreplaceable loss of the person who built it. Estelle Marie Tolley sat a boy down at a piano in Texas and refused to let him stop. Everything else followed from that. That night, laughter gave way to grace, and television remembered what it was for.